Christmas morning. Your front door swings open and your husband walks in with another woman and a stack of divorce papers. If it were you, what would you have done? I was in the kitchen, hands dusted with flour cinnamon hanging in the air like a promise. Detroit was quiet under a sheet of cold, and my kids were still asleep upstairs, dreaming about stockings and hot cocoa. William was supposed to be sleeping and maybe sneaking gifts in from the car later the way we always did. Instead, he stepped through the doorway with a woman I'd never seen before. Tall, glossy designer from head to toe. And he didn't even try to look ashamed. "Sophia, we need to talk," he said, voice flat, like he was moving a meeting on his calendar. The woman tipped her chin and looked me up and down. Then she smiled without warmth. "So this is the wife," she said. "I can see why William needed an upgrade. Do you think that's fair?" 8 years of marriage turned into an insult in my own living room on Christmas morning, while my grandmother's rolls were half in the oven. I could feel something in me twist, then lock into place. Not rage, not a sob, just steel. My spine found itself. My breath slowed. I wiped my hands on my apron and said, "The children are sleeping. We'll talk later." Pattern interrupt. Ready, I didn't break. He handed me the papers anyway. The terms were brutal. The house to him, the cars to him, primary custody to him. Me supposedly nothing, because I had never contributed financially. Emma, that was her name, glanced around like the walls offended her. "We're going to Aspen for New Year's," she added. "It's better to make a clean break. No loose ends." Loose ends. That's what my family was to them. A thread to cut. I gave my kids Christmas. We opened presents. We laughed the way you laugh when you're trying not to cry. I pulled the rolls from the oven, and the kids smeared icing with sticky fingers, and I took pictures I still can't look at without feeling the air go thin. When dusk crept across the windows and 3 small bodies finally collapsed in a fort of wrapping paper, I called Mrs. Brown. My mom's best friend, the woman you call when you have to move fast and quiet. By 3 a.m., our life was in boxes. Not the expensive things, the important things. Baby blankets, family photos, the stuffed dog with one eye. I slid 3 sleeping kids into a rideshare in their pajamas and told the driver, "Hotel, please." I did not look back. That wasn't even the wild part. Let me back up because this didn't start on Christmas. It started years earlier, slow and soft, the way a shoreline erodes. When we met, William said all the right words. He said my baking was magic, that I was too talented for a little bakery job. He said he wanted to take care of me so I could focus on what matters. It sounded like love. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was control dressed up in compliments. Wear the blue dress order, the salmon stay home, the kids need their mother. It's better if you don't work, you're too stressed already. More rules, less me. You know what I mean? I had 3 babies in 5 years. I stopped wearing makeup because Spit Up never respected mascara. I learned to tuck my hair into a permanent ponytail and not see myself when I passed a mirror. I kept the house together with lists and prayer and coffee gone cold. He came home, looked around at toys and cereal and crayons and said, "This place looks like a disaster zone." Sometimes I apologized for air I hadn't breathed yet. Sometimes I said I'll try harder and meant it. If it were you, would you have pushed back or pushed through? One day, bone-tired and weirdly hopeful, I called my mom. We talked recipes and kids and life until her voice turned quiet. "Baby girl, you sound different," she said. "You sound a little like yourself again." I laughed. I started baking. Just small things, but it helps. She let a beat pass. Then you're ready for what I need to tell you. She reminded me of the inheritance my grandmother left me, the money my parents guarded for years and gave me before the wedding. You never mentioned it to William, she said, not accusing, just factual. It had felt private, then awkward, then buried. I used it, she said, not for me, for you. I started a bakery in your name. It was small at first, but it grew. I went very still. How big, I asked, voice barely there. Mom exhaled. Sophia, it's the biggest bakery operation in Detroit. The next morning, I drove to an address in an industrial part of town and sat in my car staring at a glass front with a sign that said Sweet Dreams Bakery, Detroit's premier baking company. My childhood nickname was Sweet Dreams. My mom used to whisper it when I fell asleep on the kitchen floor while she baked. I walked in, and it smelled like warm bread and possibility. There were clipboards and schedules and a test kitchen behind glass where bakers rolled dough like music. A receptionist smiled and said, Mrs. Smith, your mother's waiting. My name. On everything. Mom took me on a tour that felt like entering a life I'd misplaced. We had contracts with hotels, grocery chains, restaurants. We had delivery trucks and a product lab and a break room where two women were laughing so hard they had to wipe their eyes. 200 employees, Mom said. I pressed my hand to a stainless table to steady myself. 200. And I was standing there in thrifted jeans and a ponytail, the owner on paper of a company I didn't even know I had. Twist coming. It's a big one. In a small office, the head of accounts pulled up our client list. I scanned the names, jaw slack, until my eyes snagged on one. Golden Crust Enterprises. Operations Manager Emma Johnson. A red note beside the line 90 days past due. My pulse beat at my throat. Do we supply them a lot? I asked. One of our bigger independent clients, she said. They've been behind. Promising payment is coming always next week. I stared out the window at a truck easing into the loading bay and let the math arrange itself. My husband's mistress ran a chain that bought bread and pastries from my company. From me. She owed me money. She had no idea. I didn't storm into their store. I didn't send a nasty email. I learned the business. I showed up every day while the kids were at school, sat in meetings, took notes, asked dumb questions, asked smart ones, ate too many croissants in the name of R&D. I got a haircut that brought my face back to life and bought a blazer that fit my shoulders like I meant what I said. William noticed. His compliments sounded like warnings. You seem independent, he said, like he was diagnosing a rash. We scheduled a meeting with Golden Crust. Emma arrived right on time, heels first. She didn't recognize me. I introduced myself as Sophia Smith, owner and CEO, and she gave me that version of a smile people use when they think they've got you measured. She explained that cash flow was temporarily tight and asked for extended terms because big things were coming. I listened like a doctor listening to symptoms she already knew by heart. I can keep the account active if you pay $10,000 immediately, I said, then the rest on a 6-month plan. Otherwise, we'll have to pause deliveries. She blinked, recovered, tried charm, tried pressure. I stayed kind and unmovable. That night, William came home in a suspiciously good mood. He whistled while he fixed a drink, a habit he hadn't had since college, and asked me about the kids with a sudden interest that made me set down my knife. Then he said, Hey, there's a friend who could use a short-term loan just to bridge a gap. $10,000. She's good for it. I asked what kind of friend. He said she manages a chain of bakeries. I wiped my hands and said, If we're lending that much, I want a signed agreement. He didn't like that, but he brought me one the next day. Emma Johnson's signature in blue. Yeah, that happened. She used my husband to borrow our family's savings to pay her past due balance to my company so she could keep buying my product. The math of that irony still makes me laugh in the kind of way that isn't really laughter. Do you think that's fair? After the payment hit, Golden Crust kept ordering smaller and cheaper, like a swimmer trying to stay afloat. William started prodding me to pull my weight financially. Retail or food service may be something entry-level. I asked, and the kids? He shrugged. They'll adapt. The same kids who needed their mother all those years now suddenly needed aftercare and babysitters so I could bring home minimum wage. Interesting how principles bend when they're convenient. Stick around because of what happened next will blow your mind. I invited Emma back to the office. We sat in a glass room with sunlight throwing squares on the table. I dismissed my team and closed the door. She crossed one leg over the other, poised, bored, ready to perform confidence. We can avoid drama, she said, if you're flexible. I folded my hands. We can, but first we need to be honest about what we're really discussing. She tilted her head. The room felt like the part in a movie when you hear a clock tick louder than it should. 3 days ago, I said you stood in my living room on Christmas morning and called me worthless. Her face went empty the way faces do when the brain throws up a wall and scrambles for a door. You're lying, she whispered. I slid the loan agreement across the table. William's name. Her name. I'm Sophia Smith, I said, calm as a Sunday. The wife, the mother, the owner of Sweet Dreams Bakery, the company that supplies your stores, the one that just kept you alive. Any questions? Silence. Then the brittle sound of a picture breaking. Here's the part you might argue with. I didn't fire her. I could have, and I know some of you would have, and maybe you're right. If it were you, what would you have done, I told her. She could keep her job under conditions personal, guarantee on the balance, reduced terms going forward, weekly check-ins with me, no contact with my family. Consequences, not fireworks. She nodded like a person nods when the floor finally stops moving. Shaky, grateful, scared. Meanwhile, the divorce moved. Lawyers translated our life into columns and lines and numbers that felt too clean for the mess of it. Without fantasy money, William's salary, $52,000, looked very normal. On paper, he wasn't the provider he believed he was. The reality set in like winter. Emma saw it too. Aspen evaporated. Designer handbags went on consignment. Within 2 months, she resigned and left the city to start over. She emailed me years later a simple apology. I never wrote back. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. William tried to soften the past with flowers and speeches. We met once in a coffee shop with a cracked red booth and a barista who kept forgetting my order. And he said, I don't deserve it, but I'm sorry. I asked, why did you need me to be small? He stared into his cup a long time. Because if you were as incredible as you are, he finally said, then I was ordinary. And I didn't know how to live with ordinary. That's the quiet math of some men. They don't want a partner. They want a mirror. When the reflection stops flattering them, they smash the glass. While he was learning that lesson the hard way, I was learning how to run a company I loved. We expanded into nearby states. We raised wages and added childcare stipends for employees because we know what it costs to show up when you're a mom. We launched the Sophia Smith Foundation to help women start businesses and pay for certification programs and emergency rent so leaving doesn't mean falling. My mother became my formal partner, her name beside mine on the door where it always belonged. She told me once I prayed you would never need what I built, but I needed you to have it in case you did. That's what love looks like when it grows up. You're waiting for me to rage about Emma. I won't. Her choices hurt people, including me. The consequences found her anyway. What I will rage about is the story we tell girls that being chosen is the goal, that the highest prize is a ring, and that once you have it, you're supposed to be grateful enough to make yourself smaller. That story costs too much. Respect is the goal. Partnership is the goal. Independence is not the enemy of love. It's the soil love grows in. Do you agree? Or does that push a button? If it does, tell me why. I want to hear you. Here's how the story ends, at least this chapter. My kids know exactly what they're worth. My daughters negotiate bedtime like little CEOs, and then help me fold dough on Saturdays with my mom. 3 generations at the counter, love baked into every layer. My son thinks chores are just what you do if you live in a house with other humans, not favors a man can grant and withhold. William shows up for school stuff and pays child support and tells the kids the truth when they ask hard questions. The truth isn't easy, but it's clean. Clean beats easy. And me, I'm not a loose end. I'm the thread. The one that runs from my grandmother's hands to my mother's to mine, the one that refused to snap when someone tried to cut it on a holiday morning. The one I'm now handing to my daughters, steady and strong. So talk to me. If your door opened on Christmas with a stranger at your husband's side, would you have stayed calm or gone to war? Was I too soft with Emma, too hard, just right? Do you think a marriage without respect is dangerous? Or do you think love can make up the difference? I want your take. The honest, messy, lived one. Drop it in the comments. Challenge me. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm right. Share this with a friend who needs a reminder that her worth isn't negotiable. Hit like so this story finds the women who are trying to be small to keep the peace. Subscribe for more true stories told the way life feels. A little crooked, a little funny, sometimes. Heartbreaking, sometimes holy. And if you've got a story like this, I'm listening. We all are.